One foreign policy prescription you call for is an increased cooperation between the United States and the European Union to address global issues. But do you think increased cooperation between them is possible when even EU member states have trouble agreeing on things like Kosovo's recent declaration of independence?
Well, first we have to recognize that no relationship, no institutions, no alliance is flawless or without problems or without difficulties. Of course not. But what my point is here is that we again should be focused on building on a consensus of common interests. There will be differences, just like in a democracy. There should be differences. Absolutely there should be differences. But in the end, the consensus must rule and govern and find ways to move a country forward or a group of nations forward because we have so many common interests. I think we've walked away from those alliances. I think we've actually weakened those, intentionally weakened them. Now, I think Europe has its share of problems. I think it should also accept its share of responsibilities for some of this. But we are the greatest nation on earth. We are the leaders in the world. It's incumbent upon us to take a higher road and be more mature.
And when we started changing the name of French fries to freedom fries, we did look a little petty, didn't we?
I thought that was so ridiculous, and everybody in the world laughed at us, and somehow we thought that we were a bunch of gorillas beating our chests, and everybody was going to somehow cower and dump all their French fries. It was just completely silly. The greatest power on earth that people look up to.
Do you think that NATO should continue to expand into Eastern Europe?
I'm sorry, to expand as what?
Into Eastern Europe. I know it's really upset Vladimir Putin.
Well, I think we are right on the brink with NATO, and that's as much as anything over Afghanistan. And what's happened with NATO is we've deferred the real tough issue in NATO for many years. When the Soviet Union imploded, there were very legitimate questions, and I remember when I got to the Senate in 1997, this question was right in front. Was there still a need for NATO? Soviet Union was gone. What was the threat? And what we did to fill that vacuum in order to defer that tough decision is we started increasing the numbers and kind of gobbling up the Eastern European nations that had been under the Soviet Iron Curtain. Now we're at a point where that in itself won't fix the problem, and you have essentially, you're getting to a 2- and 3-tiered NATO, and then you got the bigger questions coming regarding Ukraine and Georgia. I was just in Russia in January, met with all the senior leaders, and this is one that we're going to have to work through carefully, and then they will take this up in Bucharest in 2 weeks.
And you write about Russia, I'm quoting, lest we judge too harshly, we would do well to remember that nations develop in stages, just as American democracy advanced in stages. So are you suggesting that Vladimir Putin's suppression of political opposition and his government's alleged links to killings of journalists and the like are part of a trend toward democracy in that country?
No, I'm saying, just as I said in my statement, that these dynamics develop. You can't impose a Western-style democracy or a U.S. democracy, by the way, a 2008 democracy, on a country like Russia or anybody else that has no foundation, no basis of any kind of self-rule. For centuries, either a Nordic prince or a czar or a communist commissar told the people what to do, what to plant, where to eat, how to make a living. Now, I don't support that. I don't excuse that, but that's a reality. And when we try to go in and impose and measure other people based on us, now let's not forget, we have a very interesting political situation on the Democratic side of the equation for president this year. We will either have an African American as the candidate who until the mid-60s in this country, the greatest democracy on earth, if you were an African American, maybe you could aspire to being a congressman. Beyond that, it wasn't feasible.
From a few states.
Yeah, from a few states. Second, the other option is, for the Democrats, it's either Barack Obama, the African American, or Hillary Clinton, a white woman. People forget in this country occasionally that 100 years ago, the American woman, did not have the right to vote, just to vote. So before we too harshly condemn everybody based on our standards, we should go back and review that.